my location preparation, once I pick out a physical location, and I do not carry my location preparation gear with me. I do all my scouting first because that's one cool thing about postseason scouting. You can rape an area. You can go in it every day for a week straight from daylight till dark. You can spook every deer out of the area. It's totally irrelevant to the fall movements in the fall when season opens. That's the cool thing. You don't have to worry about scent control. You can totally abuse the property. So once I get my locations picked, then I go back with the location gear that I need. Because on public land, a lot of the places I'm going to have a canoe. I'm going to have hip boots, waders. I have to get back to areas where other hunters are not willing to go. So, I've got to take off whatever gear I have. So what my location is a little bit different than most other hunters. The first thing I do, if that's let's say it's a destination location, like it's a primary scrape area, or it's at a white oak tree, or in Michigan, even on public lands, we have a lot of old apple trees, because up here in the Midwest, a lot of the public land used to be pastures, farm pastures back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. And that land got sold, or the state bought it and turned it into public lands. So there's a lot of lost apple trees. So anytime you've got a destination feeding location or a primary scrape area location, what you want to do is you want to make, I always clear shooting lanes. This is on private now. I always clear shooting lanes before I prep the tree. So the first thing I'll do is I'll walk about a 30-yard, because that's about my shooting distance, a circumference around, a radius around the kill zone. And I'm looking at all the trees while I'm doing this. So this is a very casual thing. I'm walking around, and as I'm walking around, once I find the tree, okay, that's the tree I want to be in. It might have a crotch up there at 22 to 25 feet. Might have some big branches behind it. Might be a conifer versus other trees that I know are going to be leafless because it's a rough phase location. The conifers are always going to have needles in them. So once I pick the tree I want to hunt, then what I will do is I'll make another 30-yard circle around that tree. Even though that tree is within shooting distance to the destination spot, that's got to be within 25, 30 yards of the destination kill zone. But I still want to take advantage of anything within a 30-yard radius of that tree. Because a lot of times a mature buck will come in and scent check from downwind without coming into the destination location during the rut. Scent check for those. So I'll walk that 30-yard radius around the tree while I'm looking at the tree in the exact spot I'm going to be sitting in the tree. So I'm walking around the tree. I'm trying to find probably 3 areas, equidistant, so 120 degrees apart, maybe 4, 90 degrees apart, somewhat 90 degrees apart. I'm trying to find shooting lanes. So as I'm walking around, I'm looking for the areas that have the least amount of stuff that needs to be cleaned out for shooting lanes. I want to do as minimal work as I can, yet still have openings to the farthest runways from the tree. So once I walk around the tree, I figure out where I'm going to put my shooting lanes. Then I prepare my shooting lanes. Once I prepare, and when I prepare a shooting lane, I prepare a shooting lane. I'll walk in public land lots of times, and you're not supposed to cut stuff on public land. I still cut shooting lanes on public land. Okay. And I've never had anybody say anything. And I've talked to DNR officers and they didn't really care either. As long as you're cutting saplings, not big trees. So
as long as you don't bring your chainsaw in there.
Exactly. So
which I've seen that happen before too, but
I cleaned out a ground blind with a chainsaw a couple of years ago on public land, but it was all deadfalls because it was a clear cut. But anyway, and you can use a chainsaw on deadfalls, so on public land. But anyway, so once I've got my shooting lanes, I clear them out probably about, I'd say I'd give it a good 4-foot wide shooting lane. And in that shooting lane, from the farthest runway, let's say the farthest runway in this shooting lane is 25 yards from the tree. Okay. From 25 yards from that runway to that tree for 4 feet wide, there's not going to be anything in the way in that cone to that 4-foot shooting lane to that runway but air. I cut all the little stuff out, any branches on side trees that are coming over the top. you got to keep in mind you're doing this postseason. So trees are going to grow depending on the tree. You could be in a popple tree or a maple tree. You can have a branch grow 2 to 3 feet in the summer. So you've got to clear that all that stuff up there with extension saws wide enough to make up for new summer growth. So once I get my 3 or 4 shooting lanes, and then the actual shooting lane to the kill zone, let's say it's to the oak tree or to the apple tree or to the primary scrape area, that's going to be a wider shooting lane. That shooting lane is going to cover the whole width of what might be the feeding area or all of the scrapes, if it's a possibility. The scrapes are all in that tight of a zone. So I'm going to have those shooting lanes all cleaned out, and then I prepare the tree, because a lot of times when you prepare the tree first and then you go down and you get up in the tree and you say, okay, I want a shooting lane there and there and there. Then you get down and you prepare the shooting lanes. 90% of the time, I just made that number up. 90, but a high percentage of the time, when you go back in that tree to hunt it, you miss shit. There's stuff you missed. Because when you prepare the shooting lanes on the ground and then you prepare the tree, you get up in the tree and you look at your shooting lanes, it's a very rare time. Even though I thought I had everything done on the ground, when I'm up in that tree and I'm looking from the vantage point of where my bow is going to be, there's always stuff I missed. So by clearing the lanes first and then preparing the tree, once you prepare the tree and you're in the actual location you're going to be hunting while you're preparing it, you always notice stuff that you missed. And I always do stuff by myself. So, obviously, if you got somebody helping you, you can say, hey, cut that branch or cut this or cut that. And if you got somebody helping you, you can actually get up at one guy can prepare the tree while the other guy is preparing shooting lanes. And then when the guy gets up in the tree in the hunting position, he can tell him what to finish. Okay, you missed that, you missed that. When you're doing it yourself, always prepare the lanes, prepare the tree, then go back down and clean up the stuff that you missed in the shooting lane. And then I always make entry and exit routes or because of my stunt lock, I pay zero attention to wind, never get winded. I can use deer runways as my entry and exit routes, so I'll mark that. Or else sometimes, in bedding areas, I'll have to physically make entry or exit routes in the physical bedding area, which I've had that take as much as 6 hours sometimes. Just preparing an entry route that may be 200 yards long, through brush.
Hey, thanks for watching that clip. If you liked it, the full episode's right here. And before you head out, hit that subscribe button right there for me.